Hi guys, welcome to another episode of X Convo with your girl JERUSHAH and
your girl Alyssa.
And we have a special guest today.
I'm so excited.
Kelsey Vaz.
Kelsey. Why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about yourself, a little background?
Well, I am Kelsey Vaz. I'm a singer-songwriter based out of Toronto right now. I also am a working in progress studio owner, engineer, and content creator.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's
I love
me.
This. Big energy. 2021 energy. And we really wanted to include Kelsey in this because we really love reaching out to fellow creators. So you guys get a little bit of a diverse voice when it comes to talking about the creative process, the whole human side behind the scenes aspect. And so today we will be talking about deluding one's self. And what does that mean to anyone right here? Like, what does it mean to you, Kelsey, like deluding oneself when you hear that?
Diluting oneself. I think, what it looks like to me is when you have a particular goal or, just you have a idea in mind as to what where you want to be, what you are, what you want to do. But then you kind of fluff it up and fill it up with some other nonsense things just out of comfort and just out of fear, you know what I mean? So it's not really, it's more like the shotgun effect towards your dreams and not so much the sniper.
Yes.
Love that.
That's a really great visual because it ties into our last episode, which was based off of worth. And I think with expectation and just kind of the narratives, I think a lot of us tend to attach ourselves to this kind of, if I can't achieve that, then I guess, or maybe I'll undersell myself, like that underdog, like, or, where we're just kind of be like, I'm underrated or, I'm overrated. Remember, guys, you validate yourself. So it's kind of the narratives that best suits everybody, I would say, is that you rate yourself.
Totally.
Period.
Totally.
And so what about you, Alyssa, when it comes to deluding oneself? What does that mean to you?
I feel like it's almost like a lot of people, they know what they're meant to do. They know, like, they have a feeling, whether that's, like, say you really want to be, like, a healthcare worker. For me, it's, like, I really want to do photography, and I really believe in, like, I live and breathe finding and showing people their beauty through, like, my eyes and my perspective and stuff like that. And so I feel like, for me, like, I knowing that I want to do that, like, that's what I want. And diluting it would be, like, working a job that doesn't fulfill me. Been
there, done that.
Literally. But even, like, being around people who don't support me or aren't pushing me to be the best version of myself is kind of like I'm my own barrier to who I'm meant to be. And I really feel like, through my perspective, is like the universe sees and, like, when you remove those barriers and when you remove those things, the universe will recognize you and appreciate you. I'm gonna give you this job, or I'm gonna get you through this door, or, like, this door's gonna open from a crack to half open, or whatever it is. And it's like it puts you forward. So it's like you're really holding yourself back when you don't just live in your life and live in your truth.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's easier said than done, though, because I feel like, it takes a certain level of self-awareness to be able to, like, stop yourself and, evaluate the situation, know when something's good for you, and then reroute.
It also plays into the whole idea of, like, society. And society, first, we have been ingrained that, like, we go to school. And then after school, we go to school again. And we get a degree. And then after that, we get a job. And we work our life to the bone. And then you get married and you have kids. And then you retire at 65 or 66 or whatever it is with X amount of dollars. And if you don't live that way, then you're out of the norm and you're, like, an outcast and whatever. So I think people are almost afraid to kind of, like, step outside that box. It doesn't feel like society is fully going to accept you. And I feel like that's kind of like a fear-based way to go about things. But a lot of people do, because we're scared to be judged. We're scared to, step outside that. But I think at the end of the day, you kind of, like, judge yourself. And a lot of people don't care what you're doing. And I think
because they're so focused on themselves. And that's why I tell people, like, this is a great quote from Albert Einstein. He basically states that your imagination is the preview to the upcoming attractions of your life. And I just feel like when we dilute ourselves, we're also diluting that vision and that dream. And you basically are having that kind of, hey, you could have 5 seconds of pretty much of the preview, or you could have the full trailer or the full movie. And I think we've gotten to this place where we get very self-conscious of, oh, maybe everybody's watching me, or I got to prove to everybody. But everybody's so in their own worries and their day-to-day kind of needs that they have no type of, oh, let me just pay attention to this person and obsess about them. That's just ridiculous. And so it comes to a point where you, as a creator, as a human being, as maybe a mother, maybe as somebody who's single, mingling, whatever it is, whatever your journey is, you have to come to this place where you are creating a new narrative, but you're leading as the main character.
I think also having the perspective that like people are always like, oh, I'm afraid to fail. I don't want to fail. Yeah. But I don't really necessarily believe in failure, because I don't think that like if you fall down 6 times and you get up the 7th, it's like it's going to teach you the 6 times that you did fall down. Well, what did that teach you? Taught you perseverance and drive and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you're never really failing at anything. Yeah. It's just like adding those steps onto like who you're meant to be.
Failure is not trying. That's what it is. The failure is not attempting. That's why I tell people when you are diluting your vision or your purpose, it's usually coming to a smaller side of the attempt. And a lot of times people don't attempt at all. So at this point, you've watered down your purpose and your vision and everything that is in you to a level where it can't be recognized. It can't affect somebody, inspire them. And that kind of brings me to when you're run by misunderstood ego, you will attract the low-grade experiences, because at that point you have become childish and closed off. You have diluted your higher self. And when you spend time and listen to yourself, you will become the source, and the source that basically you can just kind of gauge where you're heading, instead of having this narrative of like, okay, I need to blame somebody at this point, or, I can't take ownership, or I become, I retaliate and become distant between people who become effective in my life because of my choice. And I feel like that self-awareness is so key. So when you're having ego and it becomes very, on the forefront, you become somebody who's quite abusive, like self-abusive, because you're self-sabotaging. And that's why a lot of times people will be like, exit a situation with grace. Or if you can't enter, or you feel like you can't build these relationships with people with grace, then you have to come to a point where you are self-realized. So what is that moment for you guys that you guys have a personal story, and we'll start with Kelsey, but a personal story that is, it ran off of ego and you became either childish or you had some experience with somebody who was behaving childish, and how did you navigate it? And where was that kind of self-realization that this was not fruitful? Like this system and this, how this is going right now is not going to get to where we want to be. Give us an example.
Man, off the top, I can already think of like a couple.
I mean, we have a million. Do you got time?
I mean, honestly, like, we fall forward, of course, and I can think of situations where like I'm the one who did that, and or like I caught somebody who did that to me. And I just think that, ego has a place in creativity, but it doesn't have like, a leading role. And I don't think it should. And I think it's quite easy for things to be led by people's ego, especially in this industry, especially at a local level, especially when you're using people's equipment, especially when people are doing things for free, but then they're not clear about what they want out of it.
Intention.
Exactly. The list goes on, and really it comes down to communication. It comes down to maturity. It comes down to being open, and it comes down to being honest about, what you're okay with making mistakes, and you're like, you're okay to be wrong, because like one of the things, I guess to give you like just an example, okay, well, I'll give you 2 examples. One situation where I was working, I think it was with a producer, and I love this person to this day, like I think they're great, but it was one of those situations where they had asked me to help develop an artist, and they had a certain game plan in mind that they have figured out with them, and that was totally cool. And they asked me to be a part of the session with them, and I agreed to it, and all things were fine. And I actually thought we had some pretty good synergy. But one time after a session, they pretty much pulled me aside, and they're just like, hey, like, just so you know, like I'm in charge. Don't, like, stop stepping on my toes type of thing. And I was just like, you wouldn't have asked me to be in the room if you didn't know what I had to offer.
Exactly.
But I understand, and, like, you know, I didn't take it too hard or anything, but I did know that I'm like, okay, this isn't something that I should put all my eggs in, because as much as I was invested into it before, I realized, okay, you know what, like, clearly this person either doesn't want me to overstep, or there was a disconnect. And I can't work like that, really, because I felt like it was just different from how we entered the situation. So that was one situation where I honestly had to walk away from, because I don't really want to feel limited like that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No one
like,
does.
I just...
Especially in like your field, your creative aspect, this is like your purpose. This is like what you're meant to do, and you're trying to like, you're not stepping on anyone's toes. You're just trying to like share that and like give your perspective. And sometimes having more perspective is more beautiful, because more things can happen. But I think people's egos, they're like, oh well, like I'm the best at this, and like no one can compete with me. And that's in the photography world. People are like not willing to help anybody. It's like, if you message me and you ask me a question about what camera I'm using or whatever it is, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you about it, because there's room for everybody at the top, whatever you want to consider the top of the hill. And a lot of people are like, well, there's only room for me. Especially, I feel like in Canada, in Toronto, that's a big energy here.
It's so
where when I would like go to work in New York, it was like, oh, you're a photographer? Oh, you've been doing it for 2 years? Well, I've been doing it for 6. Let's go, like, I'll go take you on, and we'll go backstage and do this. Like, I went backstage to many Fashion Week shows, and, like, yes, everyone's, like, working and kind of competing, but at the same time, there's, like, this general, like, you need help, I got you type of thing.
I love that.
It feels very safe, where I feel like when I'm here, it's, like, I feel weird, like, reaching out to people and asking and collaborating, and, like, I really rarely hear of other, like, 2 photographers getting together and, like, collaborating. And I would love to see that more often, because I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. Like, we... both have very different perspectives, and even like with music and stuff like that, like you're collaborating with an artist. Well, what if that artist has what if you like do this here, add this here, and like, oh my god, that would make it so much better. It's like collaboration to me is one of the keys to like being successful, and
community, relationships.
Yeah, totally.
And this is stemming from our generation, unfortunately, is that, you know, we can even bring it to a very like surface level, which is the dating scene, is that people can't even carry out real relationships, how to build a relationship. Dating process is just simply, you know, the superficial, you know, level of pretty much, you know, collaboration. It's getting to know somebody, not really investing in the sense of we have, you know, we've invested so much that it affects our financial, you know, income or whatever it is, like our home life or any. When you collaborate, you are 2 individuals, whole individuals, creatives coming together and forming something. That means that the obligation is just to when we meet and what we're building, and there is no expectation. There's just learning. And I think when people get to a place where they're like, I know this much, I don't need to learn, I'm good, you know, maybe I could teach you. And it's like, yeah, like we can all learn, but like, you know, you'd be surprised
you
what I know.
learn every single day of your life. Are you kidding me? Every single day, whether you're driving and I don't know, you learn everything. And when people start saying like, oh, like I'll teach you, I'll teach you, like, yeah, there's definitely things that you can teach me, but there's things that we can teach each other.
Learn
together. And I think like there's things that you've already taught me in the short period that we've been each other, and like, you know, it's like it's a good feeling. And so it's kind of in a sense like kind of sad when people are like so stuck up in their head and so stuck up in their ego that they're not willing to see like what other people have to offer, because at the end of the day they're missing out, in my opinion. They
100%.
They really are.
That's what we want to show everybody today, is that, you know, you are deluding yourself to believe that you aren't the source, the power. You are the sole creator. Does anybody have anything to add anymore to that?
Great.
That's
perfect.
Point.
I'm
that's
like, perfect. So I just want to kind of get to this place where, does age matter when it comes to time and knowledge and, you know, credibility? A lot of times when we work with people, we're like, you know, we work with an OG and they're like, oh, I've been in the scene and, you know, for 20 odd years. And so youth, I think you have a lot to learn from me. You know, let me guide you through the trenches when you realize this ever-changing scene, you know, whatever industry you're in. And you might be like, oh, well, let's talk about NFTs. They're like, wait, what? Let's talk about cryptocurrency. Let's talk about, you know, affiliated marketing. Let's talk about, you know, ways of making more money or ways of creating. And they're just like, oh, youth, like 9 to 5, the hardworking, there's process.
Go get us coffee.
Let me guide you. And I think there's a respect in what they can learn, but I've had blatantly somebody be like, you know nothing. And I'm like, you're correct. But then belittle what I have to offer because of the age difference. Mm-hmm. And that is one thing that will always piss me off, because when I meet with people, I don't even think about age. I meet people on a different front of different types of walks of life and age groups and categories, and just challenges and productivities and accomplishments. And I just come at it as it's a blank slate. So whatever we're learning from this, whatever we're gaining from this, we give it our all, and we just figure it out as we go. And whatever you can add to the pot, amazing. But press in, lean into this process. Have you ever come up with it? Have you, come against a situation where age was like, I mean, I know Alyssa has,
all the time.
It's all the time because because you're young, and it's like,
yeah. It's actually so funny that we're talking about this, because earlier this morning I had a very beautiful conversation with somebody about this exact same thing. And I deal with this all the effing time, and it drives me crazy, because I started in the industry when I was 16.
Yep.
And no one took me seriously. So what I ended up doing was telling people that I was 21, 22, 23 when I was really 16. And people believed me because I held myself at a certain standard, and whatever, and not that then that's okay. But as I got a little bit older and I realized you know what, I'm done pretending to be an age that I'm not. I am this age, but I still run into trouble all the time, because people just assume that the number that you have, the year that you're born, is the reason that you're too young, you're too mature. But I don't think that, because I've met a lot of people who are 20 years older than me, and I feel that are not as mature. And so to me, it's kind of age isn't really a number. I think maturity is a huge thing. But also, someone who's in their 40s can learn a lot from someone in their 20s. It's a new era. It's a new way of life. We have social media and stuff like that now, where they can give me things that are beneficial, but I can also give you things. So I never like when people automatically, when someone is like, oh, you're 20 years old or you're 21 or whatever, you're too young, you can be the intern, you can get us coffee, whatever. I'm automatically we're equals. We're not higher or lesser than. We're equals. And I think when people are like that, I try and remove myself from those type of situations, those type of people, because they're never going to see past my age. They're always going to see that thing.
I agree.
But I do I think now I'm kind of at the point where unless it's brought up, I'm not going to go to my way to mention it. And everyone thinks I'm 26 or 27. And I'm I'll take it, sure. But I'm not. And I think it's kind of a beautiful thing though, because, in your 20s, I feel everyone in their 20s is the same age though. We're all kind of going through the same thing.
all of us in our 20s, we're just
we're going through
at this point, we're sipping one and
so I think as long as
enjoying our time.
People are open and willing to have that conversation, there's a lot that I can learn. There's a lot that you can learn. There's a lot that everyone can learn. Then if you go in it with that mindset, I feel it's much easier to flow and work together.
I agree. What about you, Kelsey?
Well, I don't know. It's so weird because I've been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
I definitely was gigging and stuff when I was 16, 17 and in the studio. It could be age thing. It could be a female thing where you're in the studio and they treat you like a groupie, and then it's just no, I'm actually the talent. Don't you know what I mean? Stuff
or
like that.
Oh, you're a baby. I'm
but I mean,
I'm a job, but
at the same time, though,
fetus, so.
yeah, that too.
I'm not shitting myself right now.
No diapers.
You're wondering.
Thank you. But at the same time, I feel that could also be your strength, because I've worked with a lot of artists that, I'm a coach, so I'll literally have artists that are 18 that are just signed, and they're crazy, and they can self-produce, and they're engineers, and so amazing. I feel sometimes your age can really work for you.
Totally.
And even it sucks that you even went through a situation where you had to lie about your age because it had to get some sort of get the result that you knew that you needed out of it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's unfortunate that you had to because of how people treated you.
And it was even a kind of taken outside of my industry when I was because I went to college when I was 16. I graduated high school right after. I graduated early, and then I went straight to college.
Amazing.
My professors, when they knew my age, they'd be like, "You're only 16. What are you doing here?" It's I have the exact same credits, exact same everything
The
that got me
overqualified
into
speech.
this. So, like, why are you treating me different than someone who's 35 and in the program? I'm the exact same way. And I had one professor, I'll never forget this. It was like I was a little so scared. I was 16, I was going in, like, didn't know the school. I moved to a brand new city. And I was like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to just, like, try everything out.
Yeah.
And I guess they had, like, your birth dates on, like, the first day class. I don't know. Anyway, he in the middle of the whole entire class was like, "You're only 16?" And my heart just dropped, because from that moment on, I knew that everyone in that room was going to treat me differently. And then I felt like I had to prove myself to everybody in that room. And I kind of did the whole time that I was in school. And then it's funny now, because a lot of the people that I went to school with aren't even working anymore. They're not even working in the industry. And it's just interesting. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't
You'll
know.
judge.
It's, like, it's so weird, because I feel like once you're under 18, that's when it's almost like a phenom, you know what I mean? People just don't know how to treat you, because it's like, you look like a kid, but you have the mind of, like, an adult. And so it's like, well, I don't know how to, at least in my case, now, because I'm 26, but, in my case, I think it's, maybe to give, like, a little insight of what somebody my age might be thinking, is like, maybe it's just a matter of, like, are they going to act as mature as their, like, intellect, if that makes sense? Because you know, people behave differently from, you know, like, if they know the fucking encyclopedia, excuse my French, but then they still might act like a kid. So I don't know.
Totally.
Like, so
well, there's even like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds who are, like, that I know, that are just out here totally partying, like, that's their priorities. And I'm like, if that's your priority, that's fine. But we have a very different. There's 26-year-olds who are still partying. Sorry, it's such a boob.
It's okay.
that left boob energy, sensing that bad bitch.
The bad bitch energy.
Sensitive.
But yeah, like, I feel like we're all in our 20s and we're all just trying to figure it out. And I feel like your age shouldn't matter. It's all just, you know, we're all
it's
here
a
for
sense
each
of
other.
building.
I think you had it on the head, though, you know, when you said maturity, because it is maturity. Because I was also thinking, you know, what you were saying before about, like, age, and I was thinking, like, seniority. You know what I mean? Like,
That's a great word for it.
Does seniority matter? And I don't necessarily think seniority always matters, because, again, this is a creative industry. You know what I mean? And, like, I just think that, one, like, the fact that we can create shit out of, like, thin air is, like, mind-boggling, you know? And now, because of technology, anybody can do it. And so it doesn't surprise, and it shouldn't surprise anybody, that somebody who might be, like, 16, 12 is able to do something that somebody who has been in the industry for 20 years has been doing. Like, it sucks, but it is what it is. And it's really about, you know, like, collaborating, creating, and making sure that you're creating the best thing, and that's where ego really comes into play, when you're judging people based off of what you perceive of them, and really not allowing that open dialogue. And, like, you know, because I can be in the room with, like, my band right now they're all, like, extremely skilled and, like, just impeccable musicians. I think I'm a great singer, like, don't get me wrong, but I'm not out here, like, reciting my scales and, like, practicing all the time, and, like, just the level of knowledge that they know about music theory is not something that I can pick up overnight, you know? So I'm at a disadvantage when I'm in the room with them, but who gives a fuck, you know what I mean? There's something else that I can bring to the table.
But there's also preparation, you know, equates to success. So if this was a requirement, there's not 1 ounce in my bone that would not think that you wouldn't, you know, achieve it, because I know that you're a dedicated person. So you would hone in just to arise to the occasion. So I just feel like people need to understand that it really comes from, if that's the requirement, I will arise to the occasion, rather just simply, I just don't have the ability, I don't have that talent.
But that's rare, though, because there are a lot of people who want to do so many things but don't have the hustle or the drive to do it. And that's where it's like the 1%. Yeah, but it's like, you know, you could sit there and someone could be like, okay, you're 17, you're a musician, I'm going to give you a chance for sure, but I need you to prove to me that you want this. I need this, and this by the end of the week. Can you do that for me? One person who's, like, dedicated and really willing and is, like, going to work for it and maybe is a bit more mature can get that done. Someone who's just kind of doing it just, like, for whatever and it's not that mature, maybe they're not going to get it done, or to the best of their ability, they're going to just do it maybe the night up or whatever it is. So I think that also shows, like, the drive and the passion you have for what you're doing kind of speaks volumes.
I agree. So that brings us to this point in our podcast. Knowledge is power. So when history repeats itself, how does that resonate with you right now? History repeating itself. Knowledge is power. So if you know yourself, you know the circumstances you've been through, the situations you are, held against, in order to just, not allow that, repetition. And if it's repeating right now, because we're all built off of cycles, how does that resonate with you right now?
I think if I can recognize in that like exact moment that like I can see the cycle repeating itself, it's all about like self-reflection. It's like, okay, I can see this happening again. Let's dig a little deeper. Why is it happening? What triggers are going on? Who's around me? What is kind of similar to the last time? And then like, how can I pull myself out of it or not? Last time I did this and that was the outcome. So what can I do differently this time? Try something else. I think it's all about like self-reflection and like self-awareness to be able to like kind of change those patterns. But it's hard. It's not easy. Like to be like that deep in it and like recognize
self-aware
triggers and patterns and all that stuff. It's hard.
It's hard, but you know what? The best thing I've ever heard was your baggage is your resource. Your baggage is your resource. So it's one of those things where a lot of people really have a negative connotation around baggage. And I feel like, I'm sorry, if I know that I have an insecurity around this one thing and it keeps on triggering me, that's a resource. That's actually in inventory. That's details about who I am and how I operate. And I can either allow that to just kind of keep on popping up, or I can use that to my advantage. And so for me, anytime I've like seen something keep on repeating itself, and I was like, I can't get further. Like when I realized, I was like, I know a lot of people, I travel to the spots, I learn all this stuff with music and have all these amazing experiences, but there's always that threshold that I can't get past to get shit done, to get content out. So what is that? And I blame all these excuses, this external excuses where I'm like, okay, great, had this opportunity, I'm in LA, wonderful, and I'm hoping to launch some music. It doesn't happen. And internally you have to recognize it's not just the people. It's a two-way street. If it's relationship, and that's what we're doing when we collaborate and when we work with people, it's relationship. I'm choosing relationships that don't work out. The emotional unavailability is real. It doesn't happen just in relationships that are, romantic. It happens in business relationships. So if you seek out people who are unavailable because they work with J. Cole, and they're like, yeah, I'll give you some time. And you're like, wonderful. And you trust that. But you already know this is kind of a person who kind of flakes or whatever. It's non-responsive. And you still pursue it to force something to happen. That narrative, that end goal, that expectation. You already know that this is not going to work out.
Yeah.
And it most definitely doesn't.
And it's all about like the lessons that you have to like kind of relearn until you understand.
Exactly.
And it's like it's going to keep on going until you
Well,
remove
that's
yourself
why
and
history
recognize
repeats itself,
and like
the knowledge. Exactly.
And then, but I feel like it's kind of powerful in a sense because once you can recognize that, when you move forward and you step in like to a new direction or a new chapter, whatever it is, your perspective and your self-awareness is like one step bigger. So it's like you put yourself in like better situations, which means more opportunities come to you. So it's like it can be hard to do that deeper like shadow work with your shadow self, and if that's what you kind of want to call it, but it's totally worth it in the end because I think each step leads you higher up the cliff or whatever, or higher up the mountain. Whatever
cliff.
Analogy. Life is a climb.
Hey,
it's great. I will always love Hannah Montana.
Yes. Shout out to Miley.
I was gonna piggyback off what you said actually. To answer your question of I think it was with the knowledge that you already have, if history repeats itself, like how does it resonate? How does it resonate?
Yeah.
I think that it's about shifting perspective. I think that, when it comes to maybe history repeating itself, it may seem like history is repeating itself, possibly because it could be a triggering situation. And therefore, I think that it's worth taking the chance to shift your perspective so that you know and understand the situation for what it is and not so much how it's emotionally impacting you.
Yes.
And, what you were saying as well was, talking to people, communicating with people, knowing yourself. I think all of that stuff is super, super key. But, look like I feel like when you shift your perspective, there's a difference between using your example, if somebody's really, really flaky and you have an opportunity with a major artist that, you have them in mind, but because of their behavior, you don't really know, one perspective could be that they're just fucking excuse my French, I'm so sorry.
No,
we love it.
We love it. We love it.
Guys.
We love it.
They could be hella flaky, or they can just be really busy. You know what I mean?
Exactly, 100%.
And maybe this is just not the time for them. And maybe this could just be a better time for you to, like, cultivate something with somebody else.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't even have to be malice. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, thought, like,
It's
nothing
tunnel
like
vision
that.
when people
you
do
know?
see one dimension of somebody, their perception of them, and they're just like, well, that is just what it is.
Yeah.
But it's really not. There's always so many narratives to it, and also expectations on their end too that you are not maybe privy to. So
Yeah.
I've definitely had people who've had, you know, expectations where they're like, I was hoping and we can, you know, sleep together, and that's when I was going to allow you to work with me. It's real, guys.
Oh, yeah. And
It is real.
reassessing your expectation of people,
Yeah.
too, right?
Yep.
Because, like, it's such, I don't know, at this, for instance, like, when I was 21, 22, like, I had a completely different perspective on, like, relationships, people, business, my music, everything, than what I do now, you know? And I just feel like it has all come to my shift in perspective. Now I'm completely independent. Now I am, like, doing things literally all by myself. And now I feel like, okay, this is a different kind of hands-on experience that I would not have been able to, like, okay, now I really know what I want. Now I really know how I want people to treat me. Now I really know how I even want to, like, the expectation that I have for relationships. And it really just comes from falling forward and, you know.
I
maybe.
love that, falling
Falling forward.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And Will Smith says it best. He says, fail forward.
Yeah.
But you do need to move forward, which is
Totally.
very big deal.
Yeah.
So the next question before we wrap it up and give our takeaways is that obviously, you know, we can get to those places where we're feeling a little worthless or we feel controlled, and we kind of, you know, reiterated like our own versions of like what we let go and what we just definitely, what's not serving us, but you know, what we had, you know, had to grow from. Now ask yourself, is there a lie, meaning your version of your reality, what you've chosen for yourself? Now that no one owns you, what's the lie? Is it the life that you're leading right now? Or, so for instance, if you're a starving artist and that's your narrative, that's your belief, then is that the lie? Or is it you're a global sensation and that's the lie? What is the lie in your head and your belief if no one owns you and you are the person who owns yourself and your narrative and your day-to-day? What's the lie?
I love this question, and I think that every single person listening should, like, take a second and, like, kind of feel that within themselves.
Marinate in
I think
this.
it's a very deep question, has, like, a couple layers to it, but
Yeah.
what, like...
I know, it's a stumper. I
It's-
definitely feel like it's worthwhile to just kind of take in for a couple seconds and just think, you know, do I wake up and when I prepare for a photo shoot, am I leading this? Is this a lie? Is there more to me that I don't know? Is this the lie doing the podcast? Is there more to me that I don't know?
I think it would just be, like, the narrative in myself where it's almost like it's still working through, you can do this, you can explore new things, you can, like, I've been wanting to do a podcast for 2 years, and, like, just now am I doing it. So it's like, I feel like I kind of
For those 2
hold
years,
myself
yeah.
back, where it's like that
Wow.
narrative was like, I'm not ready, or it's not the right time, or I'm not as mature enough, or I don't have enough voice to say, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just like, even with my photography, maybe it's like, oh, I want to do this campaign, but I'm just not ready. Or I want
the
to
lie.
work for this company, but I'm just not good enough. Where that's not true. That's me holding myself back. So maybe just like the negative self-talk in that sense that I'm trying very, very hard to
That was the lie.
smoke over. Yeah.
That was the lie. And now you spot it because now you know when it comes back and that you can definitely be like, I know your face. You
I've been
know?
trying to do, like, if I catch myself doing like one negative thought, I'll do 3 positive. So if it's like, oh, I don't look good today, like I feel like I didn't look good today, I'd be like, okay, what are 3 positive affirmations of, like, about my body that I love?
Yes.
So, you know, it's like little cheesy things like that, but, like, they really do work. And I think you train, it's all about, like, unlearning and relearning things.
I love it.
And
That's hard.
it
Yes,
is,
I know.
because
That's hard.
when we're kids, we're taught so many different things, and, like, we don't understand how much our parents and our upbringing and our siblings and our teachers, whatever, have such an effect on us until we grow up and until we actually have to realize, oh, that's, like, what my mom said to me one time, and you have to unlearn so many things. Or
Yep.
people always say, like, going from a toxic relationship to a positive relationship is a very difficult thing to do, because you have to unlearn all of those toxic things and relearn, everything. So
Yes.
What about you, Kelsey?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I can think of maybe like a few, but I'll narrow it down to maybe two or three.
Love it.
Okay, so my first one is that you don't need permission. You don't need permission for anything. And I had to learn that, like, later on. I was definitely, like, a people pleaser growing up. You know, I lost a parent young, and I feel like I had a lot of siblings, so,
and you put yourself aside to, like, help everybody else.
Low-key, yeah.
Totally.
And I felt like, since we're all kind of fighting for that one parent's attention, one was the defiant one, and so I kind of like, well, I can't be defiant too. So I had to opt to being, like, obedient and performative, and so...
I get it.
And it's a hard, like, pressure to, like, subconsciously put on yourself, but then I feel like that narrative stays with you, like, years and years and years later, and it, like, to be self-aware of that and, like, recognize that, it's a very difficult process, especially when you've lost
I can even relate as a child of divorce.
Totally.
I relate heavy with that, because it's like you're choosing sides, but you're also realizing I'm a middle child too. So it's like I can't react, and I have to be this, person who breaks these types of barriers that have been formed in a toxic environment. And I was like, who gave me that responsibility? No one. I just put it on myself, that lie of saying, well, I got to do all the great, stuff in life and break all these boundaries and travel and do all these things. And I was like, why? Who am I proving this for? Why am I doing this? Like, you forget, where did you come into, where did you come into this room? Who are you? Like, you start asking questions like, well, I was raised as a Christian, so am I doing this for my parents? Am I doing this for me? Like, you start realizing, well, these beliefs, yes, they raised me, but
Are they me?
Yeah.
I'm raising myself right now.
And do you need whatever you dealt with before and whatever perception you had of what you think, where authority comes from, where you think your validation comes from? Like, do you still need that validation to move forward?
Yep.
Even
Am
if
I
it's
enough?
against
Like,
what you were
exactly.
before.
Like, I feel like we try to be enough for everybody but ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody but ourselves. And I feel like when you now have to sit here and this is your time to developing yourself, you're feeding yourself. I've said this, a couple times with a couple friends and posted online, is that you are the sole person that feeds your life. You wake up and you feed yourself breakfast, you have lunch, dinner, and to expect someone to feed your life or give you the answers or say that's your job is just completely backwards. But we do that. We allow that. You do it in school systems.
Codependency.
That's exactly it. Rather than, okay, I'm putting you in the wilderness. Let us, see how strong and resourceful I am. There's a lot of people that are not that fortunate to be able to be thrown to just kind of face themselves and to discover who they are. And I think that's the lie. Like, for me personally, I see it and I'm like, anytime someone's mapped out, this is what you do, this is how you're doing it, that's the lie. The discovery, the unfolding, the breaking, the earth-shattering image and, picturesque scene of what life is, that's the lie. That's the lie.
I'm actually going to piggyback off that a little bit and say that, like, the creative industry and all that stuff, like, a lot of it is just a freaking lie, girl.
It is a lie.
Because it's like, when you think about, like, the process of being an artist and the process of being, like, a writer or a photographer. Actually, I don't know the process of being a photographer, so I'm not going to go there. I'm so sorry.
But it's very similar.
No,
It's
okay,
very
okay,
similar.
cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar.
But what I'm saying is, like, I think that, with these particular career paths, yes, there are so many different ways and different, like, variations of paths that you can take in order to get to this one destination.
I agree.
But no one is really talking about, like, the milestones and, like, what it takes to be, like, a self-sufficient working artist. Like, I feel like that information is only privy to some, if you know, they do XYZ, if they jump through this hoop, you know what I mean? If they do 3 fucking backflips, like, it's just, I just feel like the whole idea of, like, if I wanted to be a lawyer, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
The path is laid out for you.
Yeah, Kim Kardashian. That's all I'm gonna say.
Like, yeah, if I wanted to be a doctor, I know I need to do this many years to do this, and then maybe specialize, and then boom, doctor. Yep. But it's just like for me as an artist, it's like the way I had to freaking just like carve my way, claw my way, learn, like freaking make mistakes, and like a lot of the things I had to figure out on my own. Like I didn't have somebody tell me until way later when we're laughing and talking about it in drinks, and they're like, see, like that's why you don't do this, and I'm here like, ha ha ha. Why didn't you say that shit to me before? You know, like I feel like
so true
when it comes to just this industry, this job or whatever. Like one of like the biggest lies I feel is that it's more than it's made out to be. Like the grunt work is the work. Yeah. It's not just like it's the work, okay? But being on stage is a privilege. Yeah. It's like that's not the grunt. So I don't know.
But I also believe that like it's maybe like not maybe well, maybe, yeah. One of the hardest, like, emotional and, like, journeys, because I feel like a lot of artists in every way, shape, and form, they do it, like, through their journey, there's a lot of self-realization. There's a lot of stuff you got to work through, and so it's almost like a soul journey that you go on.
Vulnerability,
but when you get to the end, it's like, it's the hardest but the most fulfilling thing you'll ever do, because you're living your true passion, where I feel like a lot of, I mean, maybe someone's true passion is to be a doctor, and like I fully respect that, and I love you for that, but I think sometimes having to do like the full self-realization and being like, this is what I want to do, but then like everywhere you look there's like, oh, this came up and this came up, and then still trying to create a career and trying to make money and trying to survive and trying to fight, you know, there's so many people on this planet, there's so many people in the industry, you have to fight every single day, but if it's exactly what you want to do, then it's always worth the fight.
Things they don't teach you in school, kids.
It's absolutely worth the fight. Sorry, I just wanted to say one last thing to
you're
that.
Good. I love it.
And like,
apologize. We Canadians.
I'm sorry. I talk so much. So
no. This is a podcast.
We all do.
But I think you are so freaking right, you know, and
I appreciate that.
No, no, like you are, and it really is the passion that's what keeps people going, and what literally makes people want to like quit their job and go for their passion.
Totally.
But like just the idea of loving what you do and being able to do it every day is something that I think everybody should be like rewarded and / it should be attained.
I feel like everyone is like, I don't want no one else to get to the top. I'm at the top, so I'm not going to tell you these little things because that means I got to compete with you. People have this idea that there's always competition. Yeah. But if you have this ideal that like there's room for everyone at the top, then it's like, let me help you out, you'll help me out, we'll help each other, and we'll create something good.
People need to know what the hell the top looks like for them to even say that. You know what I mean?
But this is what it is.
Because I truly think that, like, if you don't, like, what's the top for you? You know what? The top can be, like, I'm a woman. I'm thinking about having kids. I'm thinking about, like, all those things. I'm 26. I probably want to have kids in the next couple of years. So the top for me is different from somebody who's, like, let's say a guy, doesn't have any kids, has a whole bunch of money invested into his stuff, and he wants to get further. You know what I mean? Or somebody who lives in a different country. Like, the top is so different for everybody. And people think that it's just, like, Drake. It's Drake. It's Jay-Z. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you can actually be like a working, hustling artist that can have like 6 figures, that can have a big ass house. You know what I mean? And people won't even know who you are. But because you know how to do your business, and you know how to, you know, market yourself, you know how to network, you know how to, you know, foster your relationships and be self-sufficient, and you have your passion, then it's just like you can do it. But a lot of these kids out here, a lot of these people out here only see their goal as being Drake, and that's why it's so diluted, and that's why it's so like no one knows what the hell's going on, because I don't feel like anyone really has a clear direction as to what they want.
They don't know themselves, and I honestly will tell you straight up, if you have a understanding of yourself, you already have a preview. This is what I'm reiterating from Albert Einstein's quote, is that your imagination is the preview to the upcoming attractions of your life. And so if you know that you want kids, that's going to be an upcoming attraction. If you know that you're going to have tours, that's the upcoming attraction of your future. And I think if you're going to be signed or you're going to keep it local, that's your level of success. At the end of the day, I hope I never see the top. You know why? Because it means that I'm ever growing. I think Riri, when she had a career and she was like, I'm a singer and now I'm international and it's great, she knew that that wasn't the top, because then it allowed her to have room to do a, you know, lingerie empire, fashion empire, makeup empire. And now she just keeps on growing. And I just feel like for me, it stems with even just competition within our closest relationships. And so I just feel like if they knew this is not it, this is not all of it, if you just get to know yourself, you wouldn't have to walk away. You wouldn't have this in between us. We wouldn't have the end of a relationship or have an end of, you know, a business relationship or a bad falling out because you felt inferior, or that you felt that you were more than what I'm, you know, giving or anything. And that's when we kind of dilute the image, the vision of ourselves and our company around us. And so I really, really want to encourage our listeners and encourage, creators that are right now listening to this podcast, really have an intention, like a mantra, something that, or even affirmations, but that is your truth, is your way of filling back the cup with the true source of who you are, the power, the fullness of who you are. And that just kind of allows you to feel like your fuller self, even with the company you share. So what is kind of a mantra you guys can take away from what we've discussed about, you know, just this kind of, you know, deluding yourself, just what we've discussed in this duration of time? What is something that you would just say, a word, or maybe it's a phrase that is like a mantra that we can give to our listeners that they could take with them? I would suggest transparency. Ooh. If you can be transparent with yourself, the company you share will be transparent with you. And if they're not, it will be very apparent. Transparency literally allows so much to kind of be given in a space, so much to be respected. It's a sense of, you know, encouragement, but it's bold and it's courageous. And I just feel like if you can do that, just being like, it's my initial instinct is telling me this is not for me. This initial instinct shows me. And if you don't know what it looks like, even attempting that atmosphere and finding the end conclusion, it's okay that even in the midst of it, you turn away, you go home, head held high. Transparency.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's okay to walk away.
Yeah. No, that's facts. I don't want to be cliche, but I'm gonna just be cliche because, you know.
Don't wear.
Just trust the process, and, you know, like, just keep swimming, bro. Literally, just keep swimming. Don't stop. Even if, swear to God, just keep swimming. Doesn't matter. Like, keep taking bite-sized chunks as to whatever it is that you want to do, wherever you see yourself, whatever makes you feel good. Like, bite-sized chunks every single day. Do it at least once a day, and just and really like watch yourself. Be mindful and pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to how do you react to things, and pay attention to how you respond to certain things, because, you know, that's what's going to build that self-awareness. And, you know what, in no time, as you're doing these bite-sized chunks and you just keep going after what you want to, like, in a month, in a week, in a year, you'll literally be that much closer. So,
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's it.
I think it's kind of the thing that's coming to my head, and I feel like I actually need to share it. It's like uplift, and like uplift yourself and uplift others. And I think once we all kind of get to that point where we know that we can help each other and that's going to help us, it kind of just builds like a very strong community and like sense of like calm. Like when you're in a room, like the three of us right now, we're in a room, but there's a sense of like calm and like cared for, and like we're uplifting each other in every way, and it's just a very like beautiful experience. And so I feel like I'd want everyone to experience that.
Yes. Well, I'm loving it. Thank you guys. I appreciate for all you guys who are fellow creators and just our fellow community here in Toronto or wherever you're from. Make sure you put in the comments where you're from. Definitely follow us and subscribe. And also, I want you guys to know that we love Kelsey, and we are so appreciative of her being on our episode about diluting yourself. And I think, honestly, if you're ever wanting to follow somebody, this is the girl to know within the
And
city.
her studio is amazing, so definitely check it out. I think also, like, if you guys have any questions or comments or stories to share, feel free to DM us, leave a comment below, email us, whatever it is. We are happy to do questions. Like, we can do questions at the end of the podcast next week, so let's just keep uplifting and loving everybody.
Love you guys, and X Convos loves you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Don't dilute your dreams.
This episode of X Convos is engineered and recorded by Oasis Studios. To stay connected, make sure